All right, welcome to Stampscaping 101, the Stampscapes Lab, whatever you want to call it. Final video for 2024. Thanks for all of your support and checking out the vids. Always enjoy it and always a lot of fun. Okay, so in the last video I talked about kind of breaking down kind of a color transition, color scheme into the individual color components here to create depth in a given scenario. It's something that I did in my second class and it was a lot of fun to watch develop on everyone's pieces. I've been doing it for years. Tons of videos on this type of subject matter, but I thought I would do that again here because in the last video I kind of broke down a color scheme and talked about using it to create various depth and thought I would do it here. Okay, so when you're doing this type of concept here, the darker tones represent things that are a little bit closer to us. And then if we stamp out imagery in these, whatever, incrementally or, lighter tones, lighter values, they'll represent things kind of farther off in the distance after we apply those same colors in the toning process here, okay? All right, so it doesn't matter how many colors you have, and you don't have to use all of them, but I'm going to represent some of my closer things with this dark brown. Lighter brown's probably going to be a mid-tone color, mid-ground color, mid-depth, distance, whatever you want to call it. And then maybe one of these colors right here for my most distant objects. You don't want to go too light because when you start coloring this in, if you have something stamped out in your lightest of tones, they'll tend to disappear. So I would say tend to stay with the mid-tone colors and darker. Just in general, it just depends on what you're doing. You could use the lightest ones, but you have to be kind of a little bit more selective in your coloring. Okay, so what that translates into... Let's see. Let me see how dark this wine color is. It looks pretty good here. All right, so this is going to look really bizarre when I just stamp out my imagery, seeing them in all of these different colors. You know, you were typically stamping out your main imagery in a lot of scenes in just black. Okay, so seeing everything in color, it doesn't really make sense until you start bringing in those same colors in the coloring process. Happy New Year, Linda! I thought I would get in one last video for the year, and we had a couple hours here before dinner time. I don't know what we're eating tonight, but I have a little bit of time. Okay, so plum. That's a pretty nice color there. That color right there, remember someone posted that inspiration piece on the Facebook group with that, I don't know what you call that type of print, but that's that reddish kind of, I don't know, maybe it's more wine. Well, this one's called wine, but it's more of that reddish tint where they just kind of stamp the imagery. I think this would work for it. Kind of, I don't know. I'd probably go with a little bit of a different colored paper, though. If you know what I'm talking about, it's, I don't know, I think it was just I don't know, it was like some horses and a sleigh or something like that. Okay, so that is the background. Okay, so what I'm thinking about is I'm trying to decide. Okay, so here's this is my color scheme, but it's also my value scheme here, okay? This is this tone right here. These two colors are about the same value. That red might be a little bit darker than this brown here. But let's go all the way to this brown here. I'm trying to decide here. If some of the colors are roughly the same value, it doesn't matter which one you use before the other. And you can also lighten values doing this too. If you don't have like a good intermediate color, then you can just double stamp it to get a lighter value. But we're going to try to stick with as much pure color as we can so that when we add in these colors right over the top of it, it'll kind of make sense. These foundations for these types of scenes, they're always interesting looking, just kind of stamped out like that in all those colors like that. I always like doing these and kind of watching those final results. It's the final like 2 or 3 colors that kind of bring them all together. Sometimes it's even the final color, I think I mentioned. Okay, so brown. I'm wiping off this bottom part too because it's not quite so much lighter than the wine. Or, I don't know, maybe it is. I don't use wine too often, so it's like I'm not super in tune with the value of it. Okay, farther, closer, and we'll reserve the closest imagery for black in this whole composition right here. Okay, so let's insert this back in like that, I'd say. And let's go, I don't think I'm going to go to this, what is this right here? English red. I don't think I'm going to stamp something in the English red. I think I'm going to just jump this one and go into the dark brown for the next layer of depth here. And these will be on each side, flanking the composition. I should have re-inked this dark brown here. Oh, good. Perfect. I have a re-inker fluid here. I think that says dark brown. Yeah. All this label right here is covered with ink. You know, it should look, well, more like this, right? But this is what happens when you go to, you travel and you take these to different conventions and shows and workshops and you're shipping them across country and, yeah, for like several years. And the darkest of colors besides black aren't used very often. So it probably, something like a color like that probably, you know, it could have traveled with me for, I don't know, 7, 8 years at times. Back in the day. Okay, trying to get a good impression out of this because we want this one to be fairly dark. Okay. And let's go right around here. I'll go a little bit lower just to vary the height for a little bit of variation. This looks like it's a little bit closer because it's lower. Hello, Caroline. Happy New Year's Eve to you. Hey, let's do something here. We're doing the color scheme range here. Let's do that. Let me see if I have a, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to use this water pattern small in the color scheme down here. So we're going from dark to light like that, you know, bottom to top, like that. But we'll also go from light to dark inside and out when it comes to this water pattern stamp right here. And we're going to use our color scheme like this. So we're really using our color schemes really strategically. If anyone's watching this to whatever, live or in the future, this is just dye-based inks, okay? It's not specific to the Marvy line. The Marvy line, it's really convenient. They're discontinued, but you can do this with any range of pads or brands. Okay, so if you're doing it with, say, Memento, and you're doing a value range depth type of thing, then you pull out your pads and just see if it optically blends. Now this one's easy because it's just light, medium, and dark blue, but you can do that with you know, your different color schemes. And I'd always recommend taking them out and looking at it and seeing what it looks like, because if it blends to your eye on that pad indexing, it'll blend just fine on the paper, okay? Hello, Bill. Julia, Happy New Year to you, everyone. Are you all going out to the club tonight? Tearing up the town on New Year's Eve? I was joking with someone. I said, yeah, I don't know if that's really the profile of the of us stampers, you know. It's more like we're tearing up our ink pads or something like that. Okay, so if you just joined in, we're going far is light, darker is closer to us. But I'm also, this is going to be a body of water in here. So we're going to use our color scheme strategically as well, okay? So I'm just taking you can use kind of in almost any texture stamp to do this with. I happen to have like cloud, alto, cumulus, that would be fine. You can use that as water because you're just kind of using it texturally. And what I mean by that is sometimes there's stamps that, you know, most stamps you use for the image itself. And you can say this one's an image too, but I'm kind of using it more as like texture. So, you know, you can tap it and move it around like this. So it doesn't necessarily read as those little, you know, strips of image, but it just kind of reads as more of like a continuous textural, I don't know, whatever foundation maybe. Okay, so that is the yellow right there. So it's nice and light. And hello, Jeannie. Happy New Year's. When do you leave for your great big New Year's Eve ball, Jeannie? Costume ball. Okay, here's the ochre. Now the ochre one, now I'm still on a very light color here, so I might, you know, still get a pretty decent amount of coverage with it, okay? But, yeah, just in general, maybe I won't go into the scene quite as far as I did with the yellow. It's more going to come into play when I hit the darker tones. Okay, now here's one of those things. These big, you know, clusters of trees right here, I'm kind of building up a little bit of shadow here underneath them like this. I kind of go like, I kind of have it at an angle like this, okay? So I'm following the angle right here, down here, okay? Like that. So when I'm coming in here like this, I'm leaving this kind of opening like this, so it's kind of going back in perspective, okay? Same thing right here. You can see how I'm starting to build that. So when I'm hitting it over here, I'm kind of creating that shape there. And see, it's a little bit more of a, at an angle that would suggest, you know, like a vanishing point up here. Or a light source, okay, it flares out like that. I mean, it might not be. I mean, you might put a moon over here, and then the shadow would go this way instead, okay? But I'm just having it more of a, like a centralized type of thing. Now, then, you know, you're doing this up in or in the water here. You can always do this type of thing in your sky here. You just make it a little bit lighter here and darker out here, just like you're doing down here. You can even use the same stamp. So, I usually don't use my water pattern stamp up in my sky for that, but a lot of times I'll use my alto cumulus stamp in the sky and in the water. See, I do it like this usually up here, like the vanishing point or the horizon on the clouds would get a little smaller because these ones would be a little bit closer, farther away. So if I'm doing it over here, I flip this upside down and I do the same type of texturing with this. It almost, you almost can't even tell when it's done in this really condensed tapping application right here. Okay, let's go to the orange right here. And again, I'll blend it in like so. I'm going to have some other imagery down here later on, but I'm going to stamp that last because I'm going to have that in a nice dark black. But I don't mind having some of this color underneath it because it's going to be this golden light that's shining on this rock that's going to be in here. If I stamp it, I don't know, I might decide later. I decided I'm not going to put that in there. So strategic use of color in this type of scenario. I guess we always use color for strategy anyways, but it's like really kind of expanding on the strategic usage of your color scheme. So in my first classes, I always showed people, how to lay out their colors and make things visual so you can see. It was mostly so they would know what color to start off with coloring, and they just get incrementally darker and darker, okay? And sometimes, I said that because people would do this sometimes. Okay, I want to do a sunset scene, so I want to do like yellows and reds or something like that, okay? And they might take a jump from this to this, okay? Instead of making it visual, I'll say, well, you have all these other colors to go with, so try to put in those intermediate colors into your color scheme. And that, you don't have to go with this many right here. I don't know if I'll use all of these, but it just makes the color transitions easier and more rich when you're blending them into your scene, okay? And I'll show you what I mean by that too when I get to the coloring process here. You have friends over to play cards. If more than an hour, I'll be watching the rest of runs. Play cards with the video playing with the live in the background, Linda. I'm sure that's what your friends all want to see there. Lynn's having friends over to play cards, and for every game they lose, Linda said they have to take a shot, and to bring over some sleeping bags in case everyone's too, you know what I mean? They're not in a good shape to drive going home, you said, right? I'm kidding. We're kidding. She didn't say that. Okay. I was going to put this cloud up here. Okay, we're talking about the call it alto cumulus. Let's just go with this one right here. Why not? All right, so some of my pads are a little bit whipped here. But it looks like I can get a little bit of somewhat of an impression out of it here. Let me see. My pads are kind of, some of my old pads here are, they're breaking down a little bit. Okay, so here's the alto cumulus. Okay, I'm just doing it in red there. I think there was some blue on here from my previous impressions, but, so it's a little bit off there, but that doesn't matter. Okay, let me do this here too. We'll go from a lighter tone down here, and we'll go with the darker tones up here. Okay, that one didn't ink up very much because this pad is like really dented. It's time for some new pads. Maybe that's my New Year's resolution. New pads for some of these. I use things until they just absolutely can't be used anymore most of the time, so. Okay, now here comes the red, like this. I'm going from kind of top to bottom instead of inside out right here, so it's going to be darker up here and lighter down here, because that's like a horizon type of glow, like a setting sun type of thing. Okay. Let's see. let's go with the brown. All right, my brown's in good shape. All right, let me see. I don't think I used brown down here. Let's just keep that open. And let's go back to our water pen. This is all looking really nuts, I know, which I kind of want it to, because so you can see how this type of color scheme comes together in your coloring process. It looks like it won't kind of come together. Actually, as I'm looking at this myself, I'm thinking, sure this is going to work with all that up there. Okay, that's brown. Let's go back to that English red here in the water now. I don't know if I'll go up here too much with it, but let's bring it down here. Ooh, that is really dark. Or really rich. It's like real crimson-y. All right. Boy, that looks nuts. Okay, like that. I'm kind of going I might be going a little bit more extreme with this just to make a point here. But let's see, let's get to it here. The fun part. All right, let me see here. I just want to make sure these are all pretty dry. Because I'm going to be using a lot of ink on this. Let me see if I have a... Yeah, I have a couple re-inkers. I'm going to be using so much ink on this one in the base layers. It might be just be easier to start off with the pad. I mean the re-inker fluid. This is your wild New Year's party, Julia. Go and have a get a glass of champagne ready, or you can make this a drinking game. Anytime I say, which I say too often in these videos, you have to take a drink. Maybe not that one because you'd be drinking like 1,000 times. All right, there we go. Yellow. Now I said, you know, starting off with a re-inker fluid, but this one's a brilliant yellow, so it's more of this color. I'm going to start off with a lighter one at first. I just don't happen to have my number 5 blue yellow out, which is the lightest color that I stamped, or that I have in this color scheme right here. By the way, for this scene, I'm doing it on glossy cardstock, okay? And it's just because with the amount of ink, when I took a look at this, I said, okay, I'm going to be using a lot of ink on here, so I just wanted to go with something that's going to have the most amount of ink retention on the surface. That I could use just to, you know, to make it really, really nice and super vibrant here with this color scheme. But you can do this on, I guess you can do it on a mat. You might be using a little bit of a different technique though, you know, in terms of your color applications. And a mat, of course, with all of this ink, it's going to be more absorbent, so it's not going to be quite as vibrant, okay? But it can look really interesting though, and good. Okay, and with matte papers too, you can use other types of media on there, or you might even just stamp everything out and not use dye-based inks to color it at all. You can use your, you know, alcohol markers. You can go with alcohol and dye-based. You know, on matte papers, you can use your, like I said, colored pencils, and that might be good. I haven't done something like this because I haven't used pan pastels at all before, but I'd imagine on matte papers you can stamp out your imagery in different tones and use pan pastels to blend in. So it's just, this is one method here, you know, in terms of the whatever strategic usage of your color scheme. Okay. Now this is going to look like it's going to come together. You have to kind of get to those colors that these images were stamped in, including the darkest one. This is a dark brown right here, by the way, not black. Not that it couldn't have been, you know, black, but so in other words, what I'm saying is we're going to get pretty dark on this one. And this is just the first. Okay, so that was yellow. Let's get that out of the way. Let's go to, okay, this is the brilliant yellow here. I'm guessing I'm going to be able to skip the ochre here because I'm going to get a pretty good saturation of the brilliant yellow, okay? So you just add a little bit like that. Use less if you're doing like a quarter page card. All right, and the thing I'm going to try is I'm going to try to retain that light horizon glow there by not going over it with my inks, my coloring. I know how it goes with everyone, and that's the same thing with me. Sometimes you lose your kind of lightest areas in your scene because you just go over it, you know? So I have to kind of watch that myself sometimes, especially when I have a lot of ink on an applicator like this. Linda, what games do you play? Card games do you play? Linda's probably prepping here. I don't, you know, she's probably prepping. So I used to play a lot of card games growing up. My dad taught me them all, or a lot of them. The kids ones at first, but then it was like a lot of cribbage, and he was teaching me bridge. He was in the bridge club for years and kind of rejoined, which I found interesting, after he retired, which I thought was cool. But he and my mom went to play bridge for a few years after I was born. And they just stopped that at one point in time. Okay, so there's the brilliant yellow. It's starting to kind of glow a little bit more with that application. All right, and let's go to orange here. I think my orange here, yeah, my orange pad is starting to kind of not start, but it's been collapsing probably for years. You can see that it still has quite a bit of ink on there, though. Okay, I think. Let me test it right here. Okay, it's not as much as I thought. It looked like I could see it there quite a bit, though. Okay. Yeah, okay, I wasn't going to do this, but let's re-ink this a little bit here. If there's ever a pad that you have, and I don't know, whatever, the re-inkers, the pad itself is discontinued, but the fabric is still pretty decent, but you don't have the re-inker for it. If you have, like, let's say an orange like this, Marvy, but they don't have orange Marvy ink anymore, you can always you can ink it up with a different brand of orange, as long as it's still dye-based, or what you do is you just use a lighter version of some other ink in here. Like, I would throw yellow in here or something like that, or the brilliant yellow. It's going to, create a little bit of a different version of the ink that was in there inherently or was designed for, but you know, I think it's better than like tossing it out. You come up with like this, I don't know, whatever fusion ink. Yeah, it just depends on how, you know, much of the previous ink is in here, but if it was a little bit dry, it'll kind of reconstitute and create, you know, that different version. And I really don't, for me, I don't really need too many pure versions of colors unless it's black or something like that, or really the darkest of colors probably. I don't want them to be like really light versions, but something like this orange, I'm hardly ever stamping anything out in orange. Maybe sometimes if I'm doing one of these kind of, you know, the color schemes, you know, depth cards, but that's not very often, so it's more applications like this, so, you know, that's like the orange that I need in there, and if it's a little bit more yellowy or something like that, it's not really any big deal, but yeah, if your pad material is still looking good, you know, why not? And the viscosities of different ink companies are often a little bit different, so, you know, that might alter the consistency a little bit, but again, you know, it's not that too big of a deal. I don't know, if you use inks like I do. This is when someone usually posts on like a chat or something, I just threw away 20 pads. Salmon and pasta, that sounds pretty good. Hello, Lexi. Yellow and red re-inker, yeah. Really good point there, Lexi. Yeah, if you're doing re-inkers too, yeah, you can just inking it up like this. You don't have to go directly into the pad. You can just go, you know, put a few drops of your re-inker fluid on there, mix. You can create all kinds of different colors that, you know, you might not have in, you know, a direct pad version. Okay, we're on the wine color that image right there was stamped into. Okay, so, or stamped in. This isn't wine. It doesn't look like wine that I'm laying down, first of all, because there's wine mixed in physically with all those other colors that I've already used. But I'm also laying this wine over all those colors, and dye-based inks are transparent. But this is where you start getting a little bit of integration. But again, it's going to be kind of in the darker tones that this really starts to come together, kind of more, oh, kind of cohesively, more, whatever, there's going to be more harmony to it. Hopefully. It did look you know, it's still looking a little bit of a jumbled mess here, you know, from a color standpoint. You know what I mean? Color scheme standpoint. I've done these a lot of times, and I don't know. The more kind of stronger the intensity usually, not darker or lighter, but intensity, brighter, you know, duller. The more intense kind of your lighter tones are in the background, you know, it's like sometimes it's like, man, is that gonna really blend in? But I don't know, it usually does, you know, by the time you get to those darker tones. And intermediate, you know, medium tones too, you know, before you get there. But it's like specifically like a super hot pink in the background. It's like, man, is that ever gonna blend in? You know, but when you get into, there's other colors that you like blend over those hot pinks, you know, and many of them, okay. And it just seems to, it mellows everything out. It kind of brings it together. Okay, that was the wine. Let's go with the English red here. That was that pretty strong, bright red up here. Caroline likes chess. I can only play every several years. Yeah. I used to play chess with my dad quite often, mostly as a kid. We were playing chess, and before that, checkers, of course. But he had me prepped, though. He didn't study chess or anything like that, so we never go over it, like strategy or anything like that too much. But he had me prepped for 6th grade. In my elementary school, there were 3 6th grade classes, or were there 2 of them? But I won that tournament. And then I joined the chess club when I was in high school. I wasn't any good or anything like that, but that was pretty fun. I started playing again. I hadn't played in a while, and then my friend started playing at his work at one point in time. And they'd play at lunchtime, I guess. And I hadn't played in a while. Like years, probably. A few years. And I remember playing him. And I could feel my brain strain. I was watching this thing about how chess players in tournaments, they lose, they burn, I don't know, a lot of calories playing in those tournaments. They were talking about like recovery and stuff like that. Electrolytes and whatever, like, you would think about in kind of more physical endeavors, but yeah, chess was, I found that really interesting. I started watching more chess videos when that movie series on Netflix came out, The Queen's Gambit. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I'm a stamper too, so I just happen to make stamps as well. Lexi, so whenever I'm releasing new stamps, it's kind of because, what I'm stamping, it's like, what I need? I know I try to listen to people too, but it's like, if I want some other stamps myself, or I feel like I need something, then I start designing it. So it's kind of whenever I get around to some things. There was a lot of releases in 2024, though. It's because when you start designing stamps too, if you're not just designing all the time, which some companies have, people that do that. I don't know if anymore, but they had illustrators working for them, PSX and Stampin' Up! Or something like that. You kind of have to, by the way, I'm on brown here now. The brown was used in these background trees right here. But yeah, it takes a while to kind of get back in the swing of that process of designing. So I'm trying to not get out of the swing of designing and whatever brain hemisphere that tends to use this time around. So I really got into a lot of stamps that I had been thinking about for quite some time, like decades. A lot of those I got to this year, like the Halloween line, and I've been thinking about doing this kind of a new version of the Lakeside Cove for a while, and that's when I did this latest series here with this more varied tree line type of thing with the large trees. And then I'm also, these ones right here, I haven't done a whole lot with them with reflection card scenes yet, but they're kind of geared around my reflection card format, so I didn't do too many reflections underneath the stamps that are kind of supposed to be waterside. First of all, because you can get a lot more stamp designs into a set for people, so you get a lot more money's worth. But also, if you're using them in a reflection card format, which I don't know of a lot of people that are, but I am. You have the natural reflection of the foil anyway, so so something like this will reflect down in here. This isn't going to be a reflection card, but that you get those reflections down there anyway, so you don't need the reflection down here if you have that paper like that. All right, so see, this is going to get a little bit kind of like a smokier, kind of atmospheric type of thing. Brown is the thing that tends to do that, so any type of your brown tones, your Tim Holtz distressing colors and stuff like that would be really good in here. Walnut stain would be a great addition in here, overlay. The lighter ones, they're so light that you wouldn't be able to see them, but they would have been good foundation colors, antique linen, old paper, that type of thing. Just use your re-inker fluid for that type of thing though too. But that would have been a really good foundation for this whole thing here. Okay, so I'm going to use quite a bit of this one right here because this is going to really kind of give a nice cohesive, kind of a little bit of a mellower glow to this. I like the intensity, but it's still super, super hot in terms of the intensity, which, I don't know, maybe good for certain types of scenarios, but when you're doing this kind of monochromatic thing, having that whole kind of intensity like that is a little bit too much. For me, anyways. Let me see. Do I have more of that brown? Okay, I was going to see if I had that re-inker fluid right here on my desk. I don't. So let's go right into the dark brown here. Okay, it's dark brown. It looks black, but this is dark brown right here. That's what these were stamped in right here, okay? Now these like totally look out of place because they're so much darker in value than the rest of the area. So what we'll do is we'll bring in that same color into the mix right here. We'll see what it looks like. All right. Yeah, Lexi, I do need to, there's some stamps that I use in my videos, and it occurred to me that I probably used them in like 200 videos, because I still love using them. Like that, that water pattern down there. I don't know, that was probably designed in like I don't know, mid 90s or something like that, early 90s. Or maybe it was 94. That was in the first release. No, that was in the second release. I had this larger water pattern stamp. We want the most, see how that's starting to blend in like that? Up top there. So it's not like this color up there, okay? And this is where you're getting your containment, and it's starting to look more like kind of more distant objects instead of like weirdly looking colored objects. Yeah, but we want I was thinking we want the most whatever supported products out there maybe in the world, that's something that would be we have a product line here that's, some product came out, like 30 years ago, but there's still like content being added all the time with the usage of it. I was laughing because someone was asking me about like glossy paper and where to get it. Just a simple question on one of the videos. And then they asked again, on Facebook or something like that. But I don't know. I started answering, and it led us to like a whole thing on the usage of semi-glosses and glossy photo paper, and photo stamping. So I kind of laughed. I said, I wrote them like a novel. And I said, I guess, you just really asked just where do you get glossy paper from? Which could have been like a one-sentence answer with a link in there. In other words, where it comes into play right here, what I'm talking about is I tend to geek out around, anything stamp related, be it old or new. All right, so see that brown right there? These are now integrated in here, and I'm doing that same type of thing with that shadow here. I'm trying to retain. If you just joined in, what I did is I made these shadows kind of flare out a little bit like this. So the darker area right here is like this triangle that kind of mimics the objects that are casting it. So here's this kind of shape down here, and it goes like this way over here. Now, if you had a moon over here, then, the shadows would be going this way. I mentioned to them, but this is more kind of a centralized light, so you can see the kind of the vanishing point is up here, so you make your shadows kind of like at the angle pointing towards that light right in there. So, but I don't do it this way like this, okay? Because there's like striations going across the water like that, so I just try to blend, or I'll add this accordingly. See, I'm kind of making my stroke a little bit longer right here. And then right over here, so that it flares, flares out like that, I just make these strokes a little bit shorter, okay? So you can kind of maintain that shape. And see right in here, this is getting really saturated with ink, okay? So it's getting kind of wet. It's not super saturated, but kind of, at least on the surface. So you might have to kind of, I'm wiping to get those little striations in here, but then if I want to get a little bit more of a buildup, you have to kind of tap it like that to build up ink right there, because, if I do a wipe, it's kind of, I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of wiping off ink off of the surface right there, which is good too, because having this a little bit moist down here, it really makes it easy to do that nice stroke in here that's varied from kind of wet to dry and darker to lighter like that, as opposed to, I don't want to get like something like this, like that ends harshly, okay? So you just kind of, whatever, I'm using a paper towel, but you can use whatever your blending tool might be, sponges or whatever, those ink applicators, blending brushes, whatever. All right. Let's see. All right, I got that. Now I have other images that I'm going to bring in here, but I think that's a pretty decent range right there. Let's go a little bit darker around the edge. Let's create a little bit of a stronger vignette, I think. I want to contain these images in here a little bit more. Just the saturations in here are just so strong. I just want a little bit of a... Now this is brown too. I'll be going to black as well. Okay. So let's create a little bit of a... I'm kind of bringing in my vignette a little bit closer. But here's the thing. Try to get that to transition in there, as opposed to going like all dark right here, where it's like a solid value of that. Okay, so you're kind of going like this, where it's like darker and then lighter. That's what's happening right up here. It's hard to see because I'm doing it right over all those other colors in there. But that's how you get that nice kind of transition and glow in there, okay? I mean, you can go with a harder one, but it looks like more like a like a photo edge or something like that, or photo corners, you know, but a dark photo corner, you know, where it would be like a harsher line like that. It can, you know, I mean, if that happens to you, you know, you can try to blend it out, but don't blend it out with the color that, you know, has the harsh line. Go back to a color that's lighter than it and try to bring the background a little bit darker up to that harsh line, okay? If you know what I mean, if that makes sense. All right, let's see here. A little bit darker in the shadows. As I let this set a little bit too, it's getting drier, so it's allowing me to apply more of this ink. When it's really, really, like I said, when I'm applying wet into wet, it's kind of super saturated, so my ink isn't transferring as much. But yeah, you don't really have to heat set it. I mean, you could, but don't heat set it all the way so that it gives you that nice fluid kind of application. All right, so here's what I'm noticing here too. Okay, so I used some of this brown in here, but I've gone over it so much that it's fairly light in here. Let's do it again. And let's bring in a little bit of darker tones in here for a little bit more contrast. Like this, okay. And that's looking a little bit harsh, so I'll blend that out again, okay. And I want a little bit kind of varied in there, so go like that. Okay. So you can see that it's a little more textured in there and varied. And let's hit our foreground. I wasn't sure if I was going to add this or not, but let's do it. I think it'll give us some really nice scale to the piece. I was going to put this just directly across here, but everything's just kind of vertical in here with our, you know, striations in the sky, water, you know, water texture. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to go like this. And instead of putting this all the way across, I'll just kind of go like this right here, just to vary it a little bit. Okay, now, this is my color scheme right here, okay? I didn't stamp anything out in these tones right here, but here it is again. My closer things are in this dark brown. It looks like black, but that's the dark brown. This right here was stamped in plum here. The plum is a little bit lighter than this brown. This brown looks like it's a little bit darker than this, but it isn't. And this brown right here was in those trees in the background. So you have foreground, midground, background, kind of like that. Okay, but then what we're going to do is we're going to throw this into the mix, this black, and these are going to be the closest things to us. So that, again, that's how you can use your different color scheme to create range and depth. It's just another way to stamp your stamps. Instead of stamping like all of these maybe in black and then coloring it in, you just use the colors that you're going to use to color your scene kind of a little bit more strategically. We like chatterboxes here, Lexi. No, talk away. I've missed some things that some people were probably some people were talking about there, though. Oh, you ran a store. Yeah. That's the thing. That was one of the really great things about this whole entire industry. I mean, it changed a little bit when things got like crazy, but if like for the stamping stores and manufacturers, you know, for the most part, you know, people that were manufacturers of stamps. It was a little bit different in the scrapbooking industry because there was so much money behind it. You know, there were like, I don't know, I was reading like the CHA book one time, and it was like someone in like the scrapbooking world, the paper arts specifically. It's like they were like ex-CEO of like Goodyear tires or something like that, you know. Which changed things, and you know, like overseas manufacturing and everything like that. kind of big business got involved. But for the most part, from the stamping side of it was, and a lot of the scrapbooking stores, you know, there were scrapbooker owned stores, you know, and I'm not talking about like the big chains and stuff like that. But yeah, you can go into a, you know, store and, you know, you were talking to experts basically on all of the different things going on in the entire industry in general, and everyone that worked there, you know, it was the same thing. You know, they were, you know, most of the times they're users of the, you know, the products. Peers. Okay, I'm stamping out that little moose down here in the water. Now, if I ran that rock across the whole thing, I would use the smaller one, maybe kind of more centralized. Okay. Now that's in black right there, and this is in black. I was going to color this rock right here and kind of darken it in, but I don't think I need to. I think there's enough tone within the rock that, you know, just stamping it right over the background looks fine. All right, but let's put a little bit more foreground in here as well. And we'll do them in, look at all my glitter all over everything. And we'll also do that in black. So now the black next to this dark brown, hopefully it looks a little bit darker. That dark brown is pretty dark though. But this black should push depth a little bit more, I think. Let's do this. I think I could put an impression right over this right here. That tree right there with these leaves, and it might show up, I'm not sure. Beeswax. Yeah, beeswax is great. Rubber Poet. Oh, you were. Now, how long was Rubber Poet around? Was Rubber Poet the one that was based out of, was it Utah or something? Watercoloring. I love that watercoloring look. My stamps, I love the aesthetic. No, I love watercolors. That's one of my favorite looks. I don't do it. I think I was mentioning one of my previous live streams here that I love that whole look because I'm kind of watercolors and that more fluid, spontaneous kind of look. Because I'm not good at it. But I love it. Yeah, I think I was talking about it with that kind of washy, you know, Chinese ink painting type of look. There's some people that do it like tons of watercolor applications. I like the watercolor pieces where they stamp things out and they watercolor it. But I also like that whole thing. There was this whole technique too, where you're kind of like watercoloring your stamp, right? And then you stamp it out for it looks like that watercolory washy look. Oh, and you're in Bermuda. Yeah. Were there ever? There were probably... Was anyone selling stamps out there at one point in time? Like scrapbooking or something? All right. I'm putting more... See these imagery right here? Let me see if I can show you without that glare there. Okay, now in person, like this branch shows up against that background a little bit more. It's kind of hard to show it you guys right here with that glare. Okay, now I'm holding this down too for that very purpose that this is kind of moist down here. So if I don't hold this for a while and let that ink transfer, I'm going to stamp it down there, and by kind of, it's going to create like a vacuum which we're stamping like wet into moist. And I'm going to lift this up and it's only going to transfer like partial ink. Yeah, this would be the good color combination for like a forest fire, Debbie. Or you can do it too, where it's like these are a different color, but the forest fire is like in the distance or something like that as well. Okay, now see this up here? We've established here this foreground right here. So let's say I'm standing on a rock overhang or overlook, and then there's another tree kind of overhanging in here. So I'm going to add this up here, and I'm going to kind of frame off the top portion with the same image. I'm looking right here. I also have the Art Foamies version right here. Let me see. Now let's go with the same size one. The Art Foamies one right here, I can ink this up, but sometimes when I stamp it out, unless I'm going with a little bit of a thicker ink, it doesn't stamp out as dark, and I really need to go dark up here with this. So let's stick to the rubber version of leaves. Okay, like this. Have a good luck with your card games there, Linda. Have fun. Marvy markers are the Tombow markers, and you spritz them. That's a great looking technique, isn't it, Lexi? We need to bring that back again. I don't think I said, I saw you jump on there, Laura. Hello, Laura. If I missed someone, hello to you and anyone else. If you're watching in the background, thanks for jumping on. Thanks everyone for checking out really any of the videos. Whenever, but 2024. Okay, let's add that there. This is kind of framing things off in a textural way. We frame things off with that darker vignette in the corners, but you can always do it with imagery as well. What's kind of fun too, I can't really do it here, I don't think, but actually I might be able to. Let me do something here. Let me take the, I don't know if that, see, this is pretty dark up here, but you can go with your color scheme in here, and you can stamp out your foreground imagery in multiple tones as well. Let's try it here. I'll go with the brown here, but it has some black on it probably, which I'll need. But let's go with this right here. And let's see if we can get a little bit of a lighter impression that still shows up. Yeah. Okay, like that. So you're using, again, your imagery or your value color scheme to create depth going like into the deep distance right there. But you can also do it with your foreground. You can create depth with multiple values in your foreground here. So let's do that. Let me do it again here before I go to black. Again, let me just stamp out one right here. You can't really see it too much because that brown isn't too much darker than that background tone that I've already applied. I usually do this more if if it was a lighter background, you can see it a little bit more, but it's okay. And if I go with the brown, the dark brown's kind of a little bit, it's really close to the black in terms of value, so I don't want to put this in dark brown, because there's not enough contrast between the two of them to show up. Okay, let's see. Now, those leaves right there that I just stamped out too, sometimes these can dry a little bit lighter than what they look like while they're still wet. So you just, know that if you go into it and you stamp something out and it's like, okay, wait a minute. You see it the next morning, it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like what it looked like when it was wet. And if that happens, spray seal it with a acrylic sealant, and it should kind of revive some of the intensity and value that it looked like when it was still moist. Well, sometimes if that's happening, and it happens with a lot of inks, if you layer them like this to this degree. So what I like to do is I like to spray seal it before it's dry too. The Marvies don't really fade out as much, or they don't dry dull. I wouldn't say fade, because fade would, it entails kind of like a permanent loss of value. But what happens is sometimes these inks, they dry with a dull sheen on top of them, like a powdery coat, and it looks like it's dull, but if you spray seal it sometimes, or a lot of times, it penetrates that top coat and it reveals more of those more intense colors that were there in its wet form. It's like finding like a rock at the beach or something like that, and you get it and it's all beautiful and shiny, and it looks like there's a lot of depth and richness to it, and it dries and it's like flat, it's matte, but that's what the spray sealants can do. The acrylic sealants can do. It can give a more kind of a permanent kind of look to that intense color depth in there. Stampin' Pastels. I haven't used those before. What is that? Is that a pad, Caroline? Use the thick with the distress oxides on paper. Has anyone done that? I haven't done that. I don't have any distress oxides at all. Okay, I'm shaking up some of the acrylic paint pens here. I need to be really careful about that because these black impressions are really moist right now. And if I put my hand right here, I'm going to totally lift off some of that color. I'll try to be careful here. Let me see. Let me do this right here. Okay, I was going to put this over it, but if I do that, it's going to lift it off too. So I'll try to do like I'll just try to be careful. Okay, so I'm going to add on a little bit of texture to these trees here. Distress glaze. Okay, now that's one I haven't even heard of that before. It's some kind of sealant that you put over the top of the distress inks, maybe. I love the distress. I don't see too many people doing it, but I loved those kind of background techniques that people use with the distress inks. I mean, those oxides, and they do that spritzing of water with it to kind of give it that kind of fluid, I don't know, kind of almost like deep space imagery type of look. That real fluid background. And then they stamp, scenes or, objects over the top of it. I really like that look because it reminds me of like I don't know, like I said, like deep space image, like a nebula or something like that. And all those colors, those swirling kind of, and it kind of, it has that watercolory look, that real fluid look again. Okay, so I'm putting some of these, I'll try to zoom in as close as I can here without it going out of focus. Okay, yeah, it looks in focus there. But I'm putting these little highlights on the tops of some of these branches in here because we have kind of lost, some of the textural forms in here just from the sheer amount of ink that we've laid over the top of it. In the background here too, I mean, it's not terribly varied. And, doing this type of little, okay, so the yellow over yellow is not showing up. I'll use a white back in here. But this gives it a little bit more of a crisp type of texturing in there. I don't like this right in here. Let's do this right here. Okay. This image was stamped out in this wine right here. I'm going to go in with this rock texture stamp right here, and we'll bring a little bit more, or we'll add a little bit more of a crisp texture down here. If it shows up. If it doesn't show up, you can always go darker. It looks pretty good right in here too. So we're doing this right over the top of the water pattern stamp too. Okay, let's go to that dark brown here now. Okay. This kind of creates a nice transition out from that shoreline right here too. What it says is that it's not just like dropping off like into like deeper waters too. And it makes sense too, because we have that moose standing in the water too. So stands to reason that you would see some kind of like, you know, rocks or something in the water. But for us, from a textural standpoint, it just kind of makes it a little bit richer looking. Than just all of my streaks. And, you know, I've been doing this a long time, but, you know, I don't get those streaks like perfect all the time, you know. They can be a little bit rough, you know, so you can just kind of, you throw other textures right over the top of it and it kind of look, you know, it blends it in a little bit more. And I always say this because I know people kind of like stress out sometimes. It's like at certain points in whatever the process might be, they might get some kind of applications that don't look, you know, quite so smooth, and they're thinking about, you know, they might have seen my final result, but my final result is where I've buried my kind of rougher kind of applications underneath other types of things, you know, the paint pen or, you know, some white pigment ink. You know, I say this all the time, but, you know, they might just be thinking about the final result, but not kind of what some areas might have looked like along in the process, right? That are easy to, you know, hide by kind of just going through the process. The vignette stamps, yeah, their stamps would really go well with, you know, any type of nature, or I think especially like sky imagery too. Let's see. Chalky, it looks, apply the glaze. It melts away the oxide part. I'm gonna have to look at that, Lexi. That sounds interesting, but I can't envision that. Someone send me a link to that, maybe, you know. I want to see that. That whole part where it melts away the oxide part. Sounds interesting. And it's got to be done on the photo paper too, right? I'm taking it the photo paper has that emulsion coating maybe, so it can do that. Okay, let's see. Oh yeah. Do a video on that. Oh, one of the base coat kind of themed videos. Okay, let me see. Okay, here's white. I'm not going to use the white too much because I have a little bit of white in here. So I don't have a lot of like white lighting in here, okay? It's more of like this warm light. But this white gives it a little bit more kind of pop and contrast in here. I'm not going to use too much of that. So what I want from this is I just want it to kind of like shimmer in here a little bit more. And I always mention it, but like in photography, they call that specular light. It's like that little twinkles of light like on the water or something like that. It could be on anything. It could be just highlights on objects too. But it's where like light is reflecting off of it. So it's not like white. It's reflected light, but that's what... Now this is white on here, but that's, you know, it represents that reflective light that you would see, you know, with the naked eye. Yeah, And again, I always mention this, but it's like, we're surrounded by specular light, you're watching this video right now, and any little kind of like highlight on something, that's like specular light. But on like water or something like that, it's really sparkly and kind of stands out a little bit more. Okay, so again, I'm not adding too much of this down here, but because I don't want to stand out too much. Maybe I should be doing it really in the kind of more of the beige-ish warm tone like this. But oh, the gold color would be cool in here too. That would kind of like sparkle if it catches the light. I was showing that in the video before. The problem is in this, like these live streams right here, when I add that gold down in here in the water or something like that in the sky, you can't always see it. So it's not like the most, dynamic live video, technique to use. So it's like, okay, I'm adding these right here, and can you see them? No. Adding 100 little dots of some technique that's kind of invisible to whatever, anyone that's watching. But in person, what those gold ones do is they're kind of darker at certain angles, but then if you hold it up in the light, they're reflective, so they're like lighter than light, a light thing, because it's almost like glowing, sparkly reflective light in there. All right, let's see. Let me add, it's like, I don't know, it's kind of like past sunset here, but I'm going to add in a few little kind of first stars of the night type of thing peeking through like that up in the sky. And that. Let me see. When I look on my screen here, it seems like it's more intense than on what I'm looking like in person here. I don't know, my camera's like making my the colors a little bit more intense, I think. It's not that red here as on the video screen. There isn't some like beautify kind of a setting here on like this software. Like on those Zoom calls, you can like fuzz out your your face a little bit more and soften it. Which I do. Okay, a little bit more highlights on these trees here. And I think that will do it here. All right, so these are all a little bit moist around here, so keep that in mind, but dye-based inks dry pretty fast. But anyways, again, an example of strategic usage of your color schemes. I don't know if I used all of these, but when you pick out some kind of color scheme or whatever, here, let me just simplify this a little bit. I'll take out some of these intermediate ones, but it'll still be a nice range of tones. This is your warm color scheme. Sometimes it's just staying within a range of colors, light, medium, dark, like that. This one transitions into kind of their neighboring colors on the color wheel or whatever, reddish tones. But you can use these strategically, and you can stamp it your objects in those values. There's different color values, okay? And the darker ones are going to represent the things that are closer, because that's just the way it goes. Objects in the distance when you're outside or whatever are typically lighter in value as the similar objects are up close, because the light reflects off those and it's coming back, and by the time it gets to your eye, it's, what is it? Is it refraction? Or I forget what it means, but it's bouncing off all that dust and moisture in the air and stuff like that. So the image is breaking up. So there's just a farther way to go. So those objects typically, in this case, pine trees, look lighter in the distance. And you can do that, you too. You can stamp these trees out in a straight dark brown, you know, and I can use that same dark brown for the background, but just blot, you know, before I stamp that one out, I can blot it off and stamp it in there. But you can also just go with those specific colors out of it, and you can get this really intense, I don't know, whatever value depth range in your scenes like that. And it creates a lot of, I don't know, I guess atmospheric depth, you know, because that's what that kind of represents as light reflecting back into your eye like that. And I think that gives lends itself to kind of a nice kind of emotional, I don't know, whatever representation like there, because it's like light, you know, and we kind of react to it. That's why everyone likes seeing like, you know, like, I don't know, times of the day, you know, those ones like, you know, it's like the golden hours, sunrise and sunsets, when we're really made aware of like the colors around us and, I don't know, you know, everything in the air. In Los Angeles in the 70s, you know, those sunsets were really amazing with all that smog, for example. Sadly, it was kind of true, you know. All that kind of dust and, you know, ugly smog, you know, it was all brown and stuff like that. But at sunset, it was kind of interesting and made everything kind of glowing and warm even more so. Made you sick, but yeah, you know, the rest of the time, but visually I'm talking about. All right. So anyway, hello military mom, happy new year. Find just photos only YouTube video. Yeah, do a YouTube video, Lexi. I want to see that technique in there. It's on, so it's the distress oxides on photo paper with the oxide. What was that called? Oxide. I don't know where we put it in there. I got to see that one though. It sounded like some kind of reverse type of process, right? If you're removing something. I want to do some of that. I was just thinking about this too. I was thinking about a reverse impression video because I haven't done that for a while too. But I thought, I don't want to do that tonight. But I love those types of techniques like that. Those little fun little techniques, you know, which I'm starting to do a lot more these days. Yeah. Well, I guess I've been doing it like for the past couple of years, but just kind of trying to play around with everything like that. Hello, Helen. How are you? Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year's Eve. Glad you like it, Caroline. See, this too, I'm going to take this out when these, I mean, I can spray seal it right now. Dye-based inks are no problem to spray seal when they're kind of still wet like that. But I think after I spray seal this too, I might add a little bit of white ink in here too, just for a little bit of that. Everything's kind of harsh in here right now. And I want to add a little bit of that soft lighting in here with a little bit of fog or anything like that. I need to be really delicate with it though, because like I said, there's not a lot of white of the paper showing. So I don't want to, you know, sometimes if you add like that white pigment ink kind of fog technique, it can stand out kind of like it doesn't really belong very well or very much because you're adding in like a white reflective, you know, moisture representation with the, you know, the white pigment ink. So I will watch for that. Where is my white pigment ink pad? So if you just lay it down really lightly, though, those colors show through, but it can still stand out a little bit too much. Oh, here it is right here. Yeah. White pigment ink in there. So like right around in here, let's say I have a little bit of white of the paper right here and a little bit right up here. So putting a little, like little soft little kind of fog kind of creeping around that right in there, I think would finish off this piece really nicely. And yeah, everything, like I said, it's kind of harsh right in here and sharp, but I want a little softness in there just to balance it off a little bit, or to contrast against that a little bit. It's not going to be a balance because it's going to be mostly like that. But, and maybe a little bit in the background right in there too. Yeah. All right, so yeah. Okay, so photo paper's important. Okay, distress oxide, water, and then layered, and then the distress glaze rubbed over the top. Wait, are you putting it on like a sponge then, the distress glaze? It makes the colors super deep and much darker as a surprise. Okay, so the distress oxides are water-based. They're water reactive, right? And then the photo paper is also a water-based surface. Okay, I gotta see that thing. Yeah. It sounds like a really cool technique, though. I love working with those photo papers and printable vinyl sticker papers and stuff like that. Hey, Lexi, so speaking of that, if you have some like printable vinyl sticker papers, because they have those same, those have the same emulsion coating on them. You might try it with that because you might try, I don't know if the oxides will show up on them because some of those printable vinyl sticker papers are really loud like the holographic ones, but it sounds like it could be something that might be employed, you know, on some of those other papers like that too, you know, with an interesting effect, like maybe just your basic holographic, you know, like that type of thing. This one's not the printable vinyl, but it's cardstock, but they have those printable types. But you might be able to, you know, come up with like a, you know, a twist on, you know, the white, you know, photo paper, whatever process with that one. I think the article interview. Oh, yeah. Thanks for checking that out, Cynthia. I was mentioning to someone, I didn't kind of answer them at first, the Canvas Rebel, because I checked out that Canvas Rebel. I thought, they don't, you know, no one wants to read about me on there. But then they asked again a couple times, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And yeah, it was pretty cool. So thanks to, I've mentioned it on Facebook, KP from, you know, the Art Foamies, and KP, the channel here on YouTube, she did an article earlier. You can look her up too, Kristen Powers, but I think she kind of goes more by KP. I didn't know KP or if it's KAEPAE or something like that. But you can find her here on YouTube. But she had an article on there too. And what they do is at the end of your whatever your interview, they ask you to nominate someone. So she, I don't know, whatever, nominated me for one. Use your finger normally and soft cloth. Okay, just a tad. So pressure is important there too, huh? All right, everyone. So yeah. So a lot of you have the distress oxides here. You have to try this out too. I think we need that video though, Lexi. Lexi, you got a channel here though? We might need that. Okay, yeah. KAE. Yeah, thanks, Debbie. Check out KP's channel too. So she has a Friday night, not or Friday day. Weekly channel here, or whatever, video presentation. Yeah, the foamy stamps are awesome. So she wants to make some more foamy stamps with me sometime. I love using these things too. But for me, it's the larger versions of the stamps that I love, because you just can't do a rubber stamp this size. I mean, I have the Seaside Cove, but it's kind of, rubber stamps have a lot more potential detail in them, okay? But these ones are just so easy to stamp out because this is made of foam itself, so they really contour to the pages. But, you know, doing these large tree trunks like that, large, I don't know, just large imagery just in general to push scale in scenes, it's like opened the doors so much. And if I ever did like some kind of set that was kind of designed for kids too, I think I would do them in foam versions like that because it would be so much easier on their hands. There's a lot more variation to it too. But Art Foamies Fun Fridays, yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. All right. All right. Yeah. Lexi, I'm going to check out that your channel there. And um, now, did you say you did that before on a video, or you're going to, or something like that? I'm gonna check that out there. All right, maybe you can post it in your what do they call it? Whatever community page or something like that. Yeah, let us know when you get that. Are you on Facebook, Lexi? I was gonna say if you're on the Stampscapes group, post that video. I want to see that in there. That oxides technique. I don't think I've ever seen the oxides. I don't think, unless someone did it, but they just didn't mention it, like even used on photo paper before. I think it's been typically on matte cardstock, like most of the oxide pieces that I've seen. Yeah, the foam set for the kids, I think that would be a perfect thing. It's just so easy on their hands, like little kids, you know? I don't know. Yeah, Lexi, if you can join the Stampscapes group. A lot of like people here are in the Stampscapes group. And I just say, hey, here's the technique or something like that, or if you have some examples of your finished pieces in that technique, that would be cool to see. You can just say post it and then just say, hey, some people wanted to, in the live stream, some people wanted to see this technique, or you maybe, I think a lot of people would be interested in that, a lot of people have, yeah, like, Caroline, a lot of people here have those distress oxide, except for me. New Year's resolution, distress oxides, maybe experiments for me. I've loved what I've seen in those, and I love the intensity of the colors too. Sometimes, I've seen all kinds of different techniques in that kind of that real washy style and water reactive, the spritzing and all that things. But then I've seen other ones too, where it's like really intense colors. That I like. So I'd love it again for those, like, for me, I would be doing like, I see it in like these deep space types of things or backgrounds where I have that, those trees in the foreground or something like that. I would love to try that out sometime. It's like one of those things, there's so many techniques out there and so many different mediums. It's just like, that's one of those things that I always kind of kept in the back of my mind that I'm gonna have to try someday, but I just haven't gotten around to it. The 15-year-old cat screaming. I think it's called Stampscape. What's the name of our Stampscapes group? Is it Stampscapes 2 Facebook or something like that? They called it that because it's not just the Stampscapes group. It's like the Stampscapes 2 Facebook, because we used to call it, there was a Yahoo group that everyone kind of migrated from, and it was called like the Stampscapes 2 group or something like that. So I think this one's the Stampscapes 2. But I think if you just type in Stampscapes, I think it's the only group out there. I don't run the group. It's a peer owned group. Linda, who went back, who's a playing her cards right now with her friends for New Year's Eve. Whatever runs the group there. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not an admin. All right, folks. Thanks again here. Let's see, what time is it? 7. So wherever people are, even if you're East Coast, 7:10 p.m., you still got a couple hours for your last cards of the year of 2024. You can try it. Those of you with the Jeannie, do you have some distress oxides? You use distress oxides most of the time. Is that what? I have no idea what you're using, Jeannie. Like I said in one of those comments I was making on your pieces, I have no idea what you're using in those foregrounds of yours to almost do like what seems like reverse impressions there. Maybe you're making reverse impressions into that Dr. Martens when it's wet or something like that. Oh, great. Yeah, yeah. Glad you joined. We'll see you on the group. First New Year's alone. Ah. You can stamp him a surprise Happy New Year's card. 2025. Wow. Dr. Martens over distress oxide. Is that what you're doing, Jeannie? Huh. Okay. We need a time-lapse video of one of your pieces sometime, Jeannie, to see what the technique looks like. Or do a video, I don't know, just do a video of it, you know? Even if it's like a short, you know, like that foreground especially, and getting all that type of texture buildup in there. All right, folks. Have a great rest of evening. I don't need to say a safe one with this crowd right here, you know. I don't think, you know, unless you're going out partying afterwards, you know. Have a safe drive to and from. And I think on this one right here, I might add in some extra things in a future video or something like that. I'm thinking about the holographics. So speaking about a little bit of a, you know, kind of specular light in here, I think the golden holographic chunky glitter, just like a couple minimal pieces in here, like a, you know, here and there, just to create a little bit of added sparkle, you know, when you kind of have it at different angles would be cool. But I'll get this sprayed and mounted up too. And I don't know, we'll see if we can kind of finish this off with a couple little subtle types of additions in here. Maybe I may even like render some of these trees a little bit more with some alcohol inks. Couldn't do it here because everything was just so wet in here with the dye-based ink applications. But I don't know, we'll see. All right. Good night, everyone. Happy New Year. And yeah, we'll see you next year.